Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into something that literally impacts every single one of us every single day. The people we choose to keep close. We usually treat human connection, whether it's romantic, platonic, professional, whatever, like it's just simple addition. We kind of think, I am me, you are you, and together we're just us. But as we're going to see in this analysis, human connection is not arithmetic. It's chemistry. It's incredibly volatile, highly reactive, and completely capable of changing the fundamental state of matter of your life. Okay, let's quickly map out our analysis for today. We're going to take a pretty messy, emotional topic and turn it into a clean, objective audit. We'll kick things off with the relationship equation, then look at force 1, the stabilizers, followed by force 2, entropy agents. After that, we'll calculate the asymmetry of risk, and finally wrap it all up with a relationship audit. All right, diving right into part 1, the relationship equation, where we pit basic arithmetic against complex chemistry. Think about the stark contrast between the safe, simple math we expect from relationships and the powerful, sometimes explosive chemistry we actually get. Arithmetic is predictable, right? But chemistry? Chemistry means that when you combine two elements, they react. They can either stabilize each other or they can completely combust. Your relationships don't just run parallel to your life. They're actively altering your environment. And there's a profound, honestly kind of terrifying truth at the center of all this. It goes like this. A good person makes a bad situation better, but a bad person can destroy an amazing situation. Just let that sink in for a second. This observation is the absolute core thesis of our entire analysis today. It's the foundation of the relationship chemistry we're unpacking. And this really highlights the primary flaw in how we typically vet the people in our lives. We usually look for folks who are a lot of fun when the sun is shining, right? But the real test of a true friend or partner isn't how they amplify the good times, it's how they act as a shock absorber for the chaos of the real world. So let's see how this builds into our first scientific force, the stabilizers, and how they help us defy the gravity of life. Think about when you're in a truly bad situation. Maybe you're facing a terrifying health crisis, financial ruin, or profound grief. The natural weight of the world just pulls you down. That's the gravity of life. Well, a stabilizer is exactly what it sounds like, a human counterforce. Now, they might not be able to cure the disease or magically pay off your debt, but they actively change your internal experience of that gravity. Let's break down the actual, literal mechanics of what a stabilizer does. First up is cognitive reframing. They help you look at a massive crisis and actually see it as a challenge to be met, rather than just a defeat to be suffered. Second, nervous system regulation. This is fascinating biology here. Did you know that simply holding hands with a trusted partner can literally lower your heart rate? A stabilizer's mere presence acts as a biological anchor that actively drops your cortisol levels. And third is resource allocation. When your energy is completely depleted, a stabilizer will step right in and loan you theirs. So the ultimate outcome of having a stabilizer in your life becomes pretty clear. By lowering your stress hormones and lending you their strength, they literally turn true suffering into a manageable hardship. They step right into the chaos and they stop the bleeding. And that is the absolute hallmark of a fundamentally good person in your ecosystem. But now we've got to pivot to the second half of our equation to examine the other side of this chemistry. Part 3, Force 2, the entropy agents and the law of destruction. We are treating the agent of entropy like an official scientific principle because, honestly, it acts exactly like one. Think back to the second half of our thesis quote. A bad person can destroy an amazing situation. An agent of entropy is someone who is unhealed, chaotic, or purely selfish. They act as a direct catalyst for chaos, actively dismantling the peace and stability of your environment. Think about the terrifying math of destruction for a second. It takes years, millions of dollars, and thousands of hours of painstaking labor to build a beautiful skyscraper. But one person with a match and a can of gasoline, they can bring the whole thing down in an hour. It's wild, but destruction is always, unequivocally, cheaper and faster than creation. So how do they actually do it? You could be in an absolute dream scenario, hitting a career high, living in a beautiful home, and an agent of entropy will dismantle it using some very specific tactics. First is the manufactured crisis. This is where they create intense drama out of thin air simply because peace makes them uncomfortable. Then there's the theft of joy, minimizing your great achievements just to manage their own insecurities. And finally, weaponized incompetence, essentially forcing you to parent them, completely draining the precious energy you should be using to enjoy your own life.
If you want a brilliant visual analogy for this, just look at wave physics. A good partner brings what physicists call constructive interference. Their wave aligns perfectly with yours to amplify the peak, right? You soar higher together. But a bad partner? They bring destructive interference. Their chaotic wave crashes into yours completely out of phase, canceling your wave out entirely. They leave you totally flatlined, even in moments when you should be soaring.
Which brings us to Section 4, the asymmetry of risk, where we calculate the destruction coefficient. The critical realization here is that the risk in these relationships is not equal at all. We often tolerate highly toxic traits like volatility or selfishness because we convince ourselves, well, the good times are really good. But compare the two sides. The upside of a good person is incredible stability and resilience, but the downside of a bad person, it isn't just a boring weekend. It is total systemic collapse. The math simply does not balance out. And that is exactly why we must calculate what we're calling the destruction coefficient. I really want this concept to stick in your mind. If someone in your circle has the capacity to ruin your absolute best moments, if their volatility means they can crash your wave at any given time, they effectively hold veto power over your happiness. Think about that. You've essentially handed them the ultimate override switch for your joy. And that leads us perfectly into the fifth and final, highly actionable phase of this explainer, the relationship audit, where we evaluate impact over likability. This right here is the ultimate takeaway of our entire analysis. We need a fundamental shift in how we view the people around us. We've got to stop evaluating people purely based on how much fun they are or how much we superficially like them when the weather is nice. We literally must start evaluating them objectively, based on their actual tangible impact on our environment. I want you to take these two stark metaphors and really interrogate your own reality. Think of the closest people in your life right now. When you're forced to walk through the fire of a genuine life crisis, do they act as a heat shield, absorbing the chaos and protecting your peace? Or, when you're trying to carefully build a beautiful life, do they act as an arsonist, casually tossing matches into the living room? Look, life is difficult enough entirely on its own. The world is going to throw more than enough bad situations at you. You do not need to voluntarily invite a saboteur into your inner circle. So I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat haunting question to contemplate as you audit your own connections. In the difficult world we live in, are you surrounding yourself with architects who will build with you, or a demolition crew waiting to tear it all down? Choose your chemistry wisely.